2 days ago, a charity speedrun of Metal Slug, SNK's 30th anniversary stream, got cut off mid-broadcast. Games Done Quick pulled it live, mid-run, and refused the sponsor's money. Their statement named the reason directly. SNK's majority owner is a company tied to Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, and GDQ said that they hadn't reviewed that ownership closely enough before saying yes. That's one arcade studio, one afternoon, one canceled stream. It is also the smallest visible piece of something a lot bigger. Follow the ownership far enough on almost any studio you can name, and the trail keeps ending at the same fund. Here's where this starts on paper. February 2021, a routine SEC filing, the kind almost nobody reads, discloses roughly $3.3 billion in US video game stock, all bought by one buyer. Activision Blizzard, Electronic Arts, Take-Two Interactive. 3 different publishers, 3 different franchises, one name on every line. That filing is public. Anyone can pull it. Almost nobody did in February 2021 because on its own, one filing just looks like a big investor doing what big investors do. So that's the deal for the next 15 minutes. We read the filings, not the summaries, not the headlines, the actual 13 foxtrots, the press releases, the annual reports, the acquisition notices, going back to 2020. We read all of it, so you don't have to. Your recommended feed stays cat videos. Every number in this video carries the date it was true as of, because most of these numbers keep moving. Pin them down wrong, and you're the one spreading a bad stat, so we didn't. Here's a question worth sitting with before any of the receipts. This is a government spending real money at real scale across an entire industry on purpose. Not one lucky bet, dozens of them over 5 years in the same direction. Governments don't do that by accident. So what's actually being built here? And why video games specifically? Keep that question open. The rest of this video is the answer piece by piece. Start with who's actually signing off on this. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman controls the fund behind essentially every purchase in this video. His own game CEO say he's part of the reason gaming became a priority at all. Savvy Games CEO Brian Ward, March 2023 on MBS, and Prince Faisal, they're both massive gamers, number one, so they understand our products. SCMP has separately, reportedly, characterized him as a Call of Duty fan. Whatever you make of that, it matters for the story. This isn't a portfolio manager who stumbled into gaming stocks. This is somebody who wanted in. In 2022, the fund built a company specifically to do this buying. Savvy Games Group, founded that year, the Kingdom's national games champion under Vision 2030 with one job: acquire stakes across the global games industry. Savvy doesn't make games itself. It buys companies that do. And the name on Savvy's own ownership line is the same one from the filing a minute ago, the Public Investment Fund. And here's a number Savvy put behind that plan. Announced in September 2022, $37.8 billion, 70 billion Saudi Riyadh for minority stakes in game studios, 50 billion to acquire, quote, a leading game publisher outright, $20 billion for partnerships with established players, $2 billion for early stage bets. Add it up, and against the fund's total assets, that's, by our math, not a quoted figure, somewhere around 3 to 4% of literally everything the fund owns, aimed at one industry. One out of every $25 or $30 this government controls pointed at video games. 2 months later, the first big check clears. May 2022, just over $1 billion for 8.1% of Sweden's Embracer Group, dozens of studios under one roof, making Savvy the company's second largest shareholder overnight. There was a second, bigger handshake on the table too, reportedly worth $2 billion or more. That one collapsed a few months later, quietly, and nobody outside of the room knew who the other party even was, until reporting confirmed, almost a year afterward, that it had been Savvy all along. Picture that $37.8 billion as a shopping list, because functionally that's exactly what it is. Embracer's line checked off, $1 billion, one item. There are a lot more lines still sitting under it. Nintendo, Capcom, Nexon, Take-Two. Names most players never think of as being for sale. As of 2022, almost none of those lines were checked yet. That changes fast, starting next. Nintendo. May 2022, the fund discloses a 5% stake, instantly Nintendo's fifth largest outside shareholder. By early 2023, that's up past 7%. By later that year, it peaks at roughly 8.5%, the single largest outside shareholder Nintendo has. And here's the part we're not going to skip, because it cuts the other way. In October and November of 2024, the fund trimmed that stake back down to around 7.5% and falling. Say the trims out loud, or this whole story stops being honest. Same fund, same year, 3 more names dropped in like arcade tokens. Capcom, Resident Evil, Street Fighter, a 5% plus stake in 2022. Nexon, the South Korean publisher, passed 5% that same year. Koei Tecmo, roughly 9% as of the most recent reporting we could confirm. The exact date that stake was built isn't nailed down in the public record. So we're saying, as of last reporting, on purpose, not pretending we know more than we do. Back to that February 2021 filing for a second, with the actual numbers behind it. 15 million shares of Activision, Blizzard, 7.42 million shares of EA, nearly 4 million shares of Take-Two, the studio behind Grand Theft Auto, roughly $3.3 billion, day one. Take-Two's stake alone climbed from 5.3% to 6.8% over the following year. And like Nintendo, some of these positions got trimmed later too, worth saying every time. Every stake in this video so far is sitting in a public filing or an official press release you can pull up yourself right now, tonight. Not a leak, not a rumor. A government-run investment fund is required to disclose stakes like these, the same as any other major shareholder. And it did, quarter after quarter, in plain sight. For anyone who bothered to read the filings instead of just a headline. Every stake we just walked through is technically a minority stake. 5% here, 8% there. None of it alone is control. But minority stakes across enough companies held by the same single owner start to look like something else the moment the owner decides to act like one voice instead of many quiet ones. So far, every purchase in this video has been stock in companies that make games. Minority stakes, 5% here, 8% there. That's only half the shopping list. The other half is the infrastructure built around the games themselves. The leagues, the tournaments, the platforms where competitive players actually compete, and the mobile publishers people play on every single day. And in that layer, Savvy didn't take a minority stake at all. It bought it outright. Whole companies, not slices of them. Two of the biggest names in competitive esports are about to become one. January 2022, Savvy announces $1.5 billion combined. $1 billion and change for ESL Gaming, $500 million for FACEIT, merging two of the biggest names in competitive gaming into a single company under one owner. Between them, ESL and FACEIT ran a huge share of the tournaments professional players compete in worldwide. The referee's whistle, more or less, now answers to the same owner as half the teams on the field. Here's the one that actually surprises people. March 2025, Scopely, a mobile publisher owned by Savvy, agrees to buy Niantic's game division for $3.5 billion. That division includes Pokémon GO. The deal closes in May 2025. Pokémon GO alone pulled over $500 million in in-app purchases in 2024, which means the app on your phone, the one that gets you walking around your neighborhood catching Pikachu, now sits inside the same ownership structure as Nintendo, Capcom, and everything else in this video. Most people playing it tonight have absolutely no idea. Stock in the studios that make the games, outright ownership of the leagues and tournaments where people compete, a controlling stake in Pokémon GO sitting in millions of pockets right now. Add it up and it stops looking like a portfolio and starts looking like a system. That's not collecting games, one favorite franchise at a time. That's owning the pipes people play through, not just the water running through them. Whichever water happens to be flowing through this year. Which brings us to the biggest line on the shopping list. Monday, September 29th, 2025. The Public Investment Fund, Silver Lake, and Jared Kushner's affinity partners agree to take Electronic Arts private. $55 billion, all cash. The largest all-cash take-private deal in history in any industry. Shareholders approved it in December. Antitrust clearance is done, but it still hasn't closed. It's stuck at CFIUS, the committee reviewing foreign investment for national security risk, over player data concerns and one fact. The buyer includes a foreign government. Outside date, September 28, 2026. The largest buyout in history is waiting on Washington. Who pays off that debt? That's the previous video. So why games specifically for this much money? The stated answer is Vision 2030, Saudi Arabia's own plan to build an economy that doesn't depend entirely on oil forever. Games are global, they're fast growing, and culturally next to oil and sports and film, they're almost invisible. An entry point into industries the country's oil money never used to touch at all. Savvy's own $37.8 billion commitment was framed publicly as exactly that kind of diversification bet. One barrel of oil used to fund one national budget more or less on its own. Now, apparently, it can fund one loot box too. There are two honest reads here, and both deserve real numbers, not just adjectives. Read 1, legitimate economic diversification. Savvy's own $37.8 billion commitment targets thousands of jobs in a homegrown industry under Vision 2030. Oil hedging at unusually large scale. Read 2, human rights researchers including Amnesty International call this esportswashing. Image building that continues while, in Amnesty's words, cracking down on any form of critical online expression with harsh prison terms. MBS himself on Fox News with Brett Baier, September 2023, leaned into that framing directly. If sports washing is going to increase my GDP by way of 1%, then I will continue doing sports washing. Pressed further, I don't care. His own accounting on the record, GDP math and image math, same mouth. Neither reading cancels the other. Hold both at once. This isn't improvised. In September of 2022, the Crown Prince announced a formal national strategy for games and esports. The official targets by 2030. $13.3 billion added to the kingdom's GDP from gaming. 39,000 jobs. 30 Saudi-developed games rank in the global top 300. And Savvy's own annual report puts its ambitions in one line. Quote, achieving leadership status in the games industry by 2030. Not participation. Leadership. Written down, published, signed. Whatever else you make of it, nobody's hiding the plan. Nintendo, Capcom, Nexon, Koei Tecmo, Take-Two, Embracer, SNK, ESL, and FACEIT. Scopely, and through it, Pokémon GO. Electronic Arts, different studios, different countries, different decades of history, all of it sliding stake by stake toward one owner. When this much of one industry starts answering to one fund, what actually changes for the people making and playing the games? Here's why any of this should matter to you, specifically tonight. You didn't vote on any of these purchases. You probably didn't know about most of them until this video. But the next time a game you've played for years changes, a franchise gets shelved, a studio gets restructured, a live service game suddenly leans harder into monetization than it used to. The reason might not be a creative decision at all. It might trace back through a chain of ownership, stake by stake, all the way to a fund on the other side of the planet that you never chose and can't vote out. And the pattern isn't just slowing down. In January 2026, the fund transferred roughly $12 billion of its own gaming stock. Nintendo, Capcom, Nexon, Take-Two, EA, all of it, directly into Savvy. Not new purchases. A consolidation. Years of separate, individually unremarkable stakes folded quietly into a single company on paper, all at once. So, wrong answers only. Which game company do they buy next? Drop your guess in the comments. I want to see how close anyone gets. And if you haven't watched it yet, go back one video, the $55 billion EA buyout, and the part almost nobody's headline mentioned, that you're the one who ends up paying off the debt. Same shopping list, different receipt.